The role of the Public Services Ombudsman's Office is to investigate areas of maladministration in the public sector. Complaints are investigated and recommendations are made to change systems and procedures aimed at improving the service to the public. But in this 20th annual report, the Ombudsman notes that once again, not all his recommendations have been addressed in a timely manner and reveals that some findings of maladministration are still awaiting satisfactory resolution. As is now becoming customary, the Housing Department tops the list of complaints with 40% of the overall total received by the office. In the 2019 annual report, Dilip Tirathdas, who's now stepped down from the role of Ombudsman, highlights what he calls the lack of transparency in the allocation of housing, and also, he says, the unfair decisions that are made in respect of applications for inclusion onto the housing waiting list. During one investigation, the Housing Department told the Ombudsman's office that it removed a complainant from the tenancy of a flat, even though the individual met all the eligibility criteria, because of an unwritten policy on spouses. The report notes the Housing Department has refused to publish its policy guidelines so that applicants can identify the full list of what's required. Instead, the department says its established practice is to explain policies, procedures and protocols upon request, adding it will provide an extract to the relevant section in writing when necessary. However, the report recommends that these should all be published and made readily available so as to ensure procedural transparency in public services. Mr. Tirathdas accused the Housing Department of refusing to give substantive replies to a query on the basis that the decisions were based on government policy. But he says a failure to follow the department's own established written rules and procedures falls under the ambit of administrative action and maladministration, and not government policy. Therefore, it should respond to its query. Finally, the Ombudsman suggests the low level of allowance deductible for children at 60 pence per child should be reviewed to a fairer and more realistic level. The Civil Status and Registration Office, which accounts for 16% of total complaints received, is criticised for continuous deferrals on applications for residence permits, in some cases up to 5 years. The Ombudsman also targets what he calls the unfair administrative procedures regarding applications to issue or renew civil registration cards and ID cards. This, the report says, includes the unreasonable proof of residence requirement, including a copy of residential tenancy agreement for applicants who've clearly been living in Gibraltar for many years and who may not have a formal tenancy agreement in their name. The office says this is not a feasible or reasonable requirement because of the reluctance by many private sector landlords to confirm, acknowledge or extend tenancies, even in the case of spouses and children of legal tenants. This requirement, the report adds, merely helps those landlords to use the CSRO to evict unwanted tenants rather than go through established legal routes. The Ombudsman says the refusal to approve residence permits for the spouses and children of British citizens appears to verge on unconstitutional behaviour and is contrary to Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. The report also cites poor customer service by staff at the public counters, and both the Housing Department and CSRO were found to have delays in dealing with correspondence. Other complaints received by the Ombudsman's office includes 34 at the GHA, 19 at the Department for Social Security, 17 at the RGP, while 71 complaints relate to various other departments.